I had my own business for 10, 12 years. I sold it and went back to university and did an MBA. After that, I worked as an interim chief exec for 10 years or so before continuing developing other people's companies.
Nick, can you tell us about your own business and when you went into administration, what happened?
Yeah. I started a business that was a pioneer in its field in marketing services, bringing the first computer graphics systems into the industry, which needed in those days huge amounts of money. Computers were very expensive. And I got part of the investment from private investors in the city and part of it from 3i, which was very good discipline because it meant that I had to start running the business in a very professional way. There was a lot of money involved. And it grew very successfully. It was a whole new way of doing things in the industry. So initially it grew very quickly. Opened other offices, servicing banks, city PR industry. There was deregulation in the city, so they became very good, very big customers, and the business grew very well. It seems like a long time ago now, but in the mid-80s, the PC and the Mac started to get some attention as a good platform, and Microsoft produced PowerPoint, a good basic graphics package. And some of our bigger customers thought, well, maybe we can do the work ourselves and save some money. And that didn't worry me too much. You know, we managed to build continuing growth in our business until 1989, when there was the stock market crash. By today's standards, that was maybe just a blip on the stock market chart, but in that time it was absolutely cataclysmic. And the city, particularly in city PR, stopped spending. So I was faced with a business that was servicing a lot of leases and very specialist staff. So we had a very high fixed cost base. It was very difficult to know how to manage such a high fixed cost with declining revenue. I did a number of things. I bought competitors for the turnover to keep the revenue up, and that was moderately successful. But as it got more and more pressured, I felt that I had to just keep the business going in some way until the market changed and started to come back. And I started putting some personal money in, and a bit more personal money, and boy, a bit more personal money, and it started to get really quite difficult to know, as I was running through my own personal assets, to realise that actually the sums of money involved in the business were far greater than I could personally afford to keep supporting, and with very little opportunity to cut the fixed costs significantly more. I reached a point where, despite my best intentions, I had to work out how I could close the business. So at that point I took some outside advice and worked on a plan which would allow me to try and save something and avoid personal bankruptcy by setting up another business and negotiating with a liquidator to see if I could buy back some of the business and restart.
And with hindsight, at what stage do you think you should have recognised the fact that the business isn't doing well and you should stop spending money on it?
That's really tough. At that stage, I didn't know what I didn't know. After the event, it seems much more obvious, and certainly having done an MBA and now been involved in many other business ventures, I can say that actually I should never have put any of my own money in the business as it was getting under pressure. What I should have done is looked at what was going on in the business model to see whether it was going to, for sure, recover, or whether there was a fundamental shift in the market from which I may never recover. And if there was such a shift, what sort of business would be successful after the event, and look at how I could get to where I was, to where I needed to be in one step. But what I actually did was completely the wrong thing.
And I understand that you have a lot of experience in working in turnaround in other businesses. Do you see the same symptoms in other businesses that you work with?
I think for two reasons. There's a great reluctance of people in business under pressure to ask for help. The first is just not recognising that the little bit of difficulty has turned into a bit more difficulty, is now becoming a serious problem. And at what point during that line of business is tough to business is impossible do they say, I need help? The second is, a lot of people, me included at that time, find it very difficult to ask for help. It's a bit like, getting lost when you're driving around in a car. Many people just carry on driving until they find the right route, rather than stopping immediately and saying, can you help me?
And is there also something about the fact that this is your business that you don't want to accept?
Yeah, I mean, there was a great reluctance to accept that this was going bad, to the point where it was inevitable. And to have any chance of a recovery in the existing business, you need to get things changed as quickly as possible, rather than wait till it's inevitable. Then the degrees of freedom are so small that it makes it almost impossible.